Hi, I'm Kate Roberts, author of A Novel Approach, and I wanted to make a video highlighting some of the resources in the book that I haven't talked about yet. And that is, there are bookmarks in the back of the book, and I believe on the Heinemann website, that highlight some strategies or steps or tricks to help kids do some of the work that we want them to do more independently. And so I want to show you how some of these strategies work so you're really comfortable using them yourself and with students. For example, this bookmark is 5 strategies for interpreting texts. And this is almost like a recipe of how to help kids to more independently, without so much of my help, coaxing, yanking, bribing, begging, helping kids to really independently dig deep into theme and come up with some sophisticated themes on their own. So what I want to do is show you a little of how this works in a book that I'm reading, which is Passing by Nella Larson. I'm only on chapter 2, so I'm going to read some of these strategies aloud, try it on my reading so far, and maybe if you want to try it too on a book that you're reading, you can share in comments or something how it's going. It's actually fully appropriate that I'm making this video here. I didn't imagine I would make my first video of these bookmarks in a hotel, but here I am at a residence inn. It's very nice. After a mediocre workout. Oh, I have my towel. Didn't think it would happen, but here we are. And I wanted to get this out. Okay, so here are some of the strategies that are on this bookmark that I would use in my own reading. I would give it to kids to tuck into their books if they're practicing theme on their own. The first one is to name the big problems in the book. Theme usually rests in conflict, so we coach kids to name the problems and even see if they can drill those problems down to like one word or one phrase. So they're talking about things like, oh, I think friendship is a problem in this book, or gender is a problem in this book, something like that. Second step is track scenes with those problems. So we start to, like, as we're reading, look for scenes that has that problem in it, where it's glaring. So, all right, I said this is about friendship. Holy cow, this scene has friendship all over it. Third is analyze those scenes, looking for things like, okay, so friendship, this scene has friendship. Now, what is this scene saying about friendship? Is it saying that there's a reason for friendship here? Is it an effect of friendship? Is it a problem with friendship, a solution when you're having trouble with friendship, a lesson we're learning about that idea? And then the bookmark goes on to say, as we're reading, we collect all those scenes and all those thoughts that we're having about each scene in relation to this big idea. And then at the end, we categorize them, rank them, and then do some universal message work. Okay, so for this video, I'm only gonna do steps 1, 2, and 3, because I think that's really like the nuts and bolts of interpreting. I think that a lot of times we want kids to interpret texts like at the end, like we kind of get to the end and we're like, all right, what's the theme? And for kids, for me, that feels hard, right? Because I haven't done the work as I'm reading as much as I might want to. So I just read the first 2 chapters of Passing by Nella Larson, and I haven't read it before. And I like practicing this work on books I don't know very well. Like, I don't really know the themes in Passing. I haven't read it 50 times. It's not earmarked. I didn't study it in college. I didn't write my thesis on it. So it's just kind of like I'm in the position that we're asking kids to be in when they're reading a book for the first time. So I'm going to start off with chapters 1 and 2, and I know many of you haven't read this book, so I'm going to go quickly through this and then invite you to try the same thing in a book that you're reading. Ideally, maybe a fresh read, but certainly if it's a book that you've done a lot of work on, it could be that too. So the first thing, I guess, is I'm going to think through these chapters and name out some of the problems. So one problem is that Irene, one of the protagonists, is resentful of her friend Claire. Irene and Claire are both black, but they both are light-skinned. And Claire has left her neighborhood. I think it's Harlem, but I'm not totally sure because I just did a quick read of the first 2 chapters. But she's left her neighborhood and she now is passing as a white woman. Her husband doesn't even know. And they run into each other at a bar in Chicago. Oh, so maybe it's Chicago. I've got to figure that out. So one problem is this sort of resentment, jealousy thing, because it looks like Claire has more money than Irene. Okay, so resentment, jealousy, money, for sure passing. Like, I think obviously that's going to be a big theme. It feels like some low-hanging fruit, but probably important. So resentment, jealousy, money, passing, I think identity, there's fear in here, okay, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so those are all some problems. 2 is now to go in and find some scenes that I'm going to read a little more closely. I think what happens is kids read and then they think about the big ideas and then we don't push them to go back and like look at specific scenes in a closer way to do some deeper thinking about that. So I'm thinking about this scene here. I'm obviously doing a juice concentrate version of this. I'm going to pick just a paragraph as opposed to a whole scene for our purposes. But I'm going to pick the scene here where they're talking about the fact that Claire has changed her life, has left, and is passing. And she says, let's see, Claire says to Irene, "But you've never answered my question. Tell me honestly, haven't you ever thought of passing?" Irene answered promptly, "No, why should I?" And so disdainful was her voice and manner that Claire's face flushed and her eyes glinted. Irene hastened to add, "You see, Claire, I've everything I want, everything, perhaps a little more money." At that, Claire laughed. Her spark of anger vanished as quickly as it had appeared. "Of course," she declared. "That's what everybody wants, just a little more money, even the people who have it. And I must say I don't blame them. Money's awfully nice to have. In fact, all things considered, I think, Renee, that it's even worth the price." Okay, so I'm gonna stop there. And typically kids would do this on more than just a couple paragraphs. But I'm gonna say, like, okay, so the problem here is that sort of jealousy thing, like jealousy, resentment ball that's happening between the two of them. And so now I'm supposed to say something about that, right? So I'm supposed to say, like, okay, in this scene, what are these 3 paragraphs saying about jealousy, resentment, or the relationship between the two? And so what I like to do in this is then kind of go through it like a list. Like, is there a cause for jealousy and resentment? Or is there an effect of jealousy and resentment? Is there a lesson, a solution, a problem? So it's like I'm kind of just turning those things in my head until I sort of strike an idea. So now you get to watch me think on a video, so that must be fun for you. So I think there's some reason and effect here, kind of. Like, I guess what I see here is that it's like the resentment causes the jealousy, or the jealousy causes the resentment, that they're really intertwined. The other thing I'm thinking is the idea of, like, it's worth the price. And so that, like, each of these characters are kind of jealous of the other in a way, but also, like, really almost self-satisfied with their own decisions about it, right? And justifying what they're doing. And I guess that's what I think the scene might be talking about a little bit, is that, like, when you're resentful, often you spend a lot of time justifying your own position as opposed to, like, seeing things from the other person's point of view. So if I were to jot things down right now, it probably would be something like that. Like, this scene is teaching us or showing us or offering the idea that when people are resentful and jealous, that often they spend a lot of energy justifying their own position, even if at the root of it they're feeling insecure. Okay, so I'm going to jot that down. It's not that that's my interpretation of this entire text, but this is going to be a brick in the foundation that will become my interpretation of the text later on. Basically, with these bookmarks, what I'm hoping to offer kids and to offer you as teachers is something to give them that is kind of like a recipe. To be able to say, like, all right, I'm going to go and interpret this text. What are some steps I can take that can get me started, like, reasonably quickly? What's a process I can go through that can carry me to the work more on my own? So there it is, my first installment of a bookmark video. Let me know if you want more of them. I can do more of the interpretation. We didn't do any of the other work. I'm reading this book and I'm going to be trying this on my own, and I can share some of that. I think I'm also going to be sharing some other bookmark videos because there's 5 ways to push your thinking, 5 ways to have a good book club talk, stuff like that that might be helpful as well. So I hope that this is helpful. Let me know if there's any questions that come up, and have a great week at school.